Previously on Transformers University, we talked about the 1986 line from the Autobots' perspective, but now it's time to get evil. We're talking 1986 Decepticons right now on Transformers University. Hello, my friend, and welcome to episode 54 of Transformers University. I am your host, Anthony Brucali, and today we are continuing our look into the 1986 toy line, from Autobots to Decepticons. And as mentioned in the last episode, we do have some carryover from the previous year. So, carrying over from 1985 were Devastator. We had several of the Seekers carry over, that being Starscream, particularly because of his prominence in Transformers the movie, as well as the three Conehead Seeker Jets, Thrust, Dirge, and Ramjet, also fairly well featured in Transformers the movie. Blitzwing and Astrotrain both carry over, as did all 7 Insecticons, so the 3 regular-size Insecticons, Shrapnel, Bombshell, and Kickback, as well as the deluxe Insecticons, Barrage, Chop Shop, Venom, and Ransack. Lastly, Soundwave and some of his cassettes did carry over into 1986. Soundwave with Buzzsaw was available once again 3 years in a row, as well as Ravage with Rumble, the red one. And in a sort of way, and a sort of new way, we had a new cassette in Ratbat, and Frenzy, the blue one, carried over into 1986, but the metal parts were replaced with black plastic, so it is a different look to that figure. Now, as I mentioned last episode, Hasbro had a lot of ground to cover. They had to cover the late Season 2 editions. They had to continue to promote Season 2 toys into 1986. They had to cover the characters from the movie, and then some of the characters we would see early on in Season 3 of the show. So in addition to the cassettes, we had some of the Scramble City carryover. If you're unfamiliar with Scramble City, please give a listen to episode 46 of this show. That'll break down Scramble City, the concept and the cartoon for you. And as mentioned in the previous episode, the Stunticons were advertised with the aerial bots. The Stunticons being Motormaster, Dragstrip, Breakdown, Wild Rider, and Dead End. You know, it's something I didn't really touch on last episode that really should be brought to light in this one is the availability of the Scramble City Combiners as gift sets. And that was the only way you could get the tech spec for the combined robot. And I never had any of those as a kid. I had some of the combiners. I never had one of the gift sets. So there always have this bit of mystery to me. And from doing my research for this podcast and talking to friends, I guess receiving one of those gift sets is one way to just create an indelible memory. And for more on that, I'm going to toss it over to my friend Ben Cremeens.
I remember that birthday was probably one of the most amazing birthdays I ever had. I got a Defensor and a Minosaur set, like all 5 of Defensor, all 5 of Minosaur.
I'm jealous of you right now, and I'm 42.
I don't know where Mom got those things, but it was like, like just this big square box with all 5 robots in one set. I don't know where the hell she found that, but Minosaur is probably my favorite, just because Motormaster. Like I come from a background of truck drivers and that kind of thing, and the Motormaster speaks to me.
And that audio is from a New Year's get-together of a bunch of my friends, and produced by my good friend Gabriel Owens, the Salty Seaman, as you've heard him on the show before. And they did a roundtable discussion of Transformers the movie that is available to our Patreon subscribers at the $3 and up level. So if you want to hear that and hear a bunch of longtime Transformers fans talk about Transformers the movie, swing on by our Patreon, patreon.com/TFU.INFO, and join up for more. And as I also mentioned in the previous episode, Bruticus was advertised with Metroplex, and Bruticus being the Combaticons, in their combined form, individually, Onslaught, Brawl, Blastoff, Swindle, and Vortex, all available in 1986. And as I teased last time around, so just as the Scramble City figures on the Autobot side could interact with Metroplex, so could the Stunticons and Combaticons interact with Trypticon, the Decepticon city.
That's it, Trypticon, the new Decepticon city. It's enormous! That never stopped the Protectobots before. Transform Trypticon! The Transformers! The awesome new Decepticon city, Trypticon, can transform into an incredible battle station.
Transform the Protectobots!
But the Protectobots can transform into Defensor.
But Trypticon can transform again into a dinosaur! Transformers!
The Transformers, batteries not included, from Hasbro.
And Trypticon also available with Brunt, the tank made from his parts, and Fast Track, the small robot, also offered with the figure. That wasn't the last combiner the Decepticons got that year. Additionally, a larger combiner made of larger individual figures was also released.
You Decepticons can stand up to the Dinobots, but the Predacons can. The Predacons not only transform into robots, but into one gigantic robot, Cremeens. Transformers, more than meets the eye. Transform the Predacons! Transformers! It's the Dinobots! Can't stop Predaking!
The Transformers, each sold separately from Hasbro.
So we have Predaking, made up of Razor Claw, Headstrong, Tantrum, Dive Bomb, and Rampage. And those Predacon figures are certainly much larger than your Scramble City combiners and do combine in a similar way, but not as different of a way as Devastator. So, 86 was actually a really combiner-heavy year for fans of the Decepticons, as there were 4 combiners available to collectors and kids in Devastator, Bruticus, Menasor, and Predaking. Now, just as the Autobots had a city commander, so did the Decepticons.
The courageous Ultra Magnus is a born leader. We meet at last, Galvatron. And it will be the last time we meet.
And Galvatron is Ultra Magnus' sworn enemy! Galvatron transforms from laser cannon to fighting robot.
And Ultra Magnus from huge car carrier to Autobot commander.
And now it's here in theaters everywhere. Transformers the movie.
It's over, Prime.
Does Prime die? Transformers the movie, rated PG, now playing everywhere. Don't miss it.
And I just find it funny. Does Optimus Prime die? Was that a question before? Was anyone thinking about that? Were kids going, man, I hope to see this movie and hope to see the leader and the main character just get killed. A way to plant the idea into kids' heads. It's just one of those things that it's certainly enticing. If you didn't want to see the movie before, I could see how that would draw you in. But come on, no one was really thinking that, were they? And so Galvatron was released also as City Commander, and not really explaining or wanting to spoil the movie in the commercials. So there's no mention of him being Megatron prior. That's why he is sold as the City Commander, and essentially a different character for all intents and purposes with the toy. And for some, the Galvatron figure holds a very special place in their heart. And just as we talked about Metroplex last episode with Ben Yee from BWTF.com, here's Ben with his childhood memories of Galvatron.
1986 Decepticon toy. My favorite one, I'm going to go with Galvatron. Now, Galvatron actually was given to me as a gift by my father. And again, going back to what I said earlier about them not making a lot of money, Galvatron was also not a very cheap figure at the time. I think he might have been around 20 to 30, depending on the retailer. So, a good amount of change. And I loved that he had that he had all these electronics in him. I love the design of the original toy, which of course is pretty dramatically different from the animation model. And but the other thing, and you might find this funny, is part of the reason I loved having Galvatron is I had played with my G1 Megatron toy to the point where it fell apart. And so literally my Megatron had been destroyed and I needed a new Decepticon leader. So it was great to get Galvatron so he could take Megatron's place. And I think as a kid I didn't understand how poetic that was, but as an adult I find it amusing.
And of course, you can find Ben at his website, www.bwtf.com, and reach out to him on Twitter at BWTF_Ben. Moving on to some more toys released in 86. As the Autobots had the jump starters in 1985 that were automatically transforming toys that you would pull back and they'd flip into action and transform from a spring-loaded mechanism. In 86, the Decepticons got something similar with the Battle Chargers.
Look! It's Autobot and the Autobots! Battle Chargers attack!
Nobody jumps into action faster than Battle Chargers.
My Battle Chargers will crush the Autobots!
Nobody jumps into action faster than Battle Chargers. For them meets the eye, the Transformers.
It's the Autobots! Battle Chargers attack!
The Transformers, each sold separately from Hasbro.
And as I mentioned last episode, some of these commercials really take strong liberties with rewriting the lyrics to the Transformers theme. The Battle Chargers released were the Decepticons Runabout and Run Amok. Also released in 1986, the third Decepticon Triple Changer, which I touched a little bit on last episode, and that was Octane, the oil tanker slash jet slash robot, joined Blitzwing and Astrotrain among the Triple Changer offerings for that year. He also released in 1986, to go with the carryover jets in that same assortment, were Cyclonus and Scourge. And you can hear about them in this commercial that we played part of last episode for the Autobot cars.
And more Autobots join Optimus Prime. Cup.
Reminds me of the battle on Beta 4!
Hot Rod.
Watch my smoke!
Blur.
Now you see me! Now you don't!
And these are the new Decepticons, the evil Cyclonus.
I'm spoiling for a fight!
And Scourge.
No one escapes the sweet!
But soon a new Autobot leader will arrive, introducing Rodimus Prime. No one can take on the Decepticons like Rodimus Prime.
The Transformers!
The Transformers, each sold separately from Hasbro.
And finally, and this is another one where the song goes a long way to adjust for the product, and that would be the Sharkticons.
What could be more terrifying than being Cup and Hot Rod stranded on an alien planet battling the merciless Sharkticons?
Really, see? Find friends today!
Transformers! For them meets the eye.
Meet the Sharkticons!
Autobots never face the evil force worse than the terror of the Sharkticons, the Transformers. The Transformers, each sold separately from Hasbro.
So the Sharkticons were released as a toy, and worth noting here also that the Sharkticons were given a proper name for at least one of them, and that would be Gnaw, Gnaw. He had a name and a personality. It was not just a mindless Sharkticon, but I don't know if all the Sharkticons are named Gnaw, or if it's just one character named Gnaw, who happens to be a Sharkticon. Finally, and I think this is the last thing worth noting, so that wraps up the Decepticon toys overall. There are a lot of ancillary characters shown in these commercials, just drawn on as either background, as being attacked, as hopping on and off Ultra Magnus, as we mentioned before, such as Jazz and Red Alert and Smokescreen. But there's also a lot of these reflect carryover figures from 1985. So in one of the commercials, you see Powerglide and I believe Warpath getting attacked, and Blaster is in one of the Ultra Magnus commercials, and Blaster is in the Ultra Magnus commercial. So these commercials, while not specifically advertising particular toys, still advertised other toys. So it's kind of a neat little workaround for the folks at Hasbro. And that wraps up the 1986 line from the Decepticon side, and as a whole on the U.S. toy releases. Now, if you were part of our Patreon, patreon.com/TFU.INFO, you would have been able to hear this episode and the previous 3 episodes way ahead of everyone. So by now, this should be coming out, late March? Patreon subscribers are getting this episode probably at the first week of March, give or take. So it pays to be part of the Patreon, and to get access to episodes early is our lowest tier. So for $1 a month, you would have gotten to hear 4 episodes way before everyone else. And as always, even if they're not a month in advance, you will always get to hear this show at least one day ahead of the rest of the world. Now, if you don't want to join the Patreon, that's cool. I understand. You can use our Amazon links. TFU.INFO/Amazon will take you there. Anything then that you buy on Amazon kicks back a couple pennies our way. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/TFU.INFO. And if you want to reach out to me directly, best place to do it is on Twitter at TFU_info. You can also catch me on Facebook and Instagram, facebook.com/TFU.INFO, instagram.com/TFU.INFO. And if you want to just old school, email me, info@TFU.INFO. The Toy Archive is up at www.tfu.info. It's the longest running toy archive on the web. I'm still working on updating pages, so we're still a bit behind in filling in some of the more modern toys, but we're updating the look. We're barreling through as best we can. Part of why some of these episodes are being recorded really early. So please swing on by there and use us for all of your toy identification and character history needs. Next time on the show, we're diving a little bit deeper into something that is always fun for me to cover, and it certainly doesn't get as much attention. I think a lot of people kind of dig these episodes. I hope you do. We are going to talk about coloring books from 1986. And so we'll get into some of the wacky coloring book fun and adventures and weirdness behind the stuff that came out in 1986. So I thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this look into the 1986 toy line. I hope to see you next episode. I am Anthony Bricali. This is Transformers University. See ya.